Hello, and welcome back to the Explorer channel. My name is Randy Myers, and I am delighted to share with you today. And I hope that what I share will not only enlighten your soul, but bring you joy, happiness, and peace. For the next few minutes, I invite you to come along with me as I speak to an issue that is central to many millions and perhaps even billions of people worldwide. It is the issue of whether God, the Christian God, is as unyielding, stringent, and outright vengeful as the Bible describes him or her to be. I speak to this issue because, frankly, over the past few days, my soul has had to endure some rather depressing and outright troublesome messages regarding this issue. First, I found myself conducting a funeral in a rather interesting church, and I won't name the denomination, of course, where, to bide my time, I happened to pick up some reading material. The piece of literature or tract that I selected was entitled, "At the Grave of a Friend," and I'd like to share with you the message that was on the inside of it. It was formulated in a poem that goes like this. Have you ever stood at the grave of a friend and wondered when your life would end? The one in the box hasn't really died. He has only passed to the other side. And the day will come when you too must go, and your destination you should know. Though you treat folk good and live life well, you could still end up in the fires of hell. Your salvation's not bought by the works you do, but by faith in God's Son who died for you. Christ died on the cross to pay sin's price, and by trusting Him, you'll not die twice. Now the day will come when friends stand at your grave. Will they know you knew the Christ who could save? Will they know from your life you are heavenward bound, or will they just stand and look at the ground? And listen to that funeral now, and picture your soul in a fiery hell. Time is so short, and our days are so few. Is eternity's question settled for you? Have you trusted Christ who said, "I am the way"? The choice is yours, friend. Why not make it today? And then just the other day, I was coming down a road, highway, and the big billboards had a picture of a nice little paradise, and then the fires of hell. And it asked, "Do you know where you're going?" Now, I have to admit, this is exactly what I had believed for the majority of my life. Until recently, the past year or so, I have ascribed to this most extreme viewpoint, upsetting as it is to me now. However, having finally summoned the courage to question my faith, I have concluded that this message, this deeply disturbing message, is severely lacking and unquestionably outdated. Let me try and explain. First, I'd like to speak anthropomorphically. If God, the creator of all life, possessed the foreknowledge that the vast majority of his or her creation would spend an eternity apart from him or her, in unrelenting agony no less, why create life in the first place? Why would God subject creation to the overwhelmingly difficult and seemingly impossible task of finding their way to paradise at the risk of losing them forever? What's the point in this? Now, there are many who use this same argument for modern-day parents trying to bring forth life in such a harsh and oftentimes unyielding world, but I would submit that this is nowhere near the same comparison. For one, this world is not hell. It is not unyielding, unmerciful, unending spiritual, emotional, and physical torment. Regardless of how difficult this life is or has been for someone, it is of no comparison to what hell is envisioned to be. Secondly, we have a level of personal autonomy whilst here in this body that seemingly is no longer available to us once this physical shell is used up. Thus, we can choose how we spend this life while we are physically alive. Lastly, the choices that we make do not necessarily impact the remainder of our physical lives. Sure, there may be a few decisions that have a lifelong impact, but nothing that comes close to what awaits us in hell, and for all time no less. Second, let me speak theologically. If God had intended for hell to exist, this means that he or she possessed the foreknowledge of such existence and created hell from the beginning. Unless, of course, you subscribe to the thought that God is in a constant mode of creation, and that somewhere along the course of time, he or she thought hell wouldn't be needed. Yet, in this scenario, God would be seen as uncertain of his or her creation, their collective response to his or her benevolence. If God had intended for hell to exist from the beginning, then God had to know that billions and billions of souls would spend their eternal existences in this place of torment he or she created. Would this not make of God a complete and utter malevolent ogre? How about this theological thought? Wrap your reasoning brain around this. If God is utter goodness, it is completely separate from the darkness or evil or sin that the Bible describes, then where does he or she exist apart from hell? Theologically, there can be no place in creation where God is not, if God is everywhere, all at once, at all time. Therefore, extrapolating this idea out, God is in hell as well. If not, then a duality is created where hell, evil, sin, or Satan, as a being, rules in place of God. Now, where is this place that they rule? Is it earth? Does Satan rule the earth? If so, then when his or her time is complete, where then is hell? Does it continue to exist? If not, then is hell obliterated and all within it? Do these souls simply cease to exist in oblivion? Are they gone forever, completely done away with for all eternity? The interesting points to ponder, no doubt. What if we considered this question from a philosophic point of view? Where would we end up then? Let's talk philosophically for just a little bit. Try and imagine this scenario if you can. In the vast expanse of time, or what we consider time, man is just a blip on the radar screen. I've heard it calculated this way. If Earth's history were relegated to a one-year period, then the appearance of man wouldn't even occur until December 31st at 11:45 p.m. Did you get that? Humanity does not even register in the vast expanse of Earth history until the final day in the final minutes. Recorded human history occurs in the final minute of the final day of that year. Imagine that. Our history as a species doesn't even begin until almost the end. What does this tell us about life as we know it? More importantly, what does this suggest to us about the importance placed on our species as it regards our place in Earth history? Well, it tells me that we are either very young in our overall species development, or we're the pinnacle of creation and have an unlimited future ahead of us. Either way, our time on this planet suggests that the Creator was concerned with other life forms as well. Life forms that predate humanity by millions, perhaps billions of years, and that we are not the central and only life form that matters. This also suggests to me that our time on this planet, however brief it may be, does not constitute a test for the remainder of eternity. If it did, would we not be given more of the time we so need to straighten ourselves out, to prepare more adequately for our eternal destiny? Lastly, let me speak in terms of justice. The Christian God is described as a God of justice, and as a species, we seem to be preoccupied with this concept. We want and need justice in our lives, and if we don't receive it, we become very unsettled in our souls. Well, if justice is deemed as the quality of being fair and reasonable, then I'm not quite certain the Christian God, as we have currently envisioned him or her, would qualify as such. Let me try and explain. First, there are many passages in the Bible that describe God as acting anything but just. One of my all-time favorites is found in 2 Kings 2, verses 23 and 24. Let me share it with you. From there, Elisha went up to Bethel. As he was walking along the road, some boys came out of the town and jeered at him. "Get out of here, Baldy," they said. "Get out of here, Baldy." He turned around, looked at them, and called down a curse in the name of the Lord. Then 2 bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the boys. Now, Christian apologists will say that this particular passage should be considered allegorical, and I would agree, as I do not believe this event actually occurred historically. Yet I would stipulate that much of what is recorded in the Bible is allegory, not intended to be treated as, pardon the pun, gospel. But if you treat the Bible literally, you must accept that this figure, the prophet Elijah, with God's express approval, called two bears out of the woods and watched his 42 children, who did nothing but poke fun of his bald head, were mauled to death. What kind of just God is this? I could, of course, share many other similar biblical stories, but this example is sufficient to prove my point. As it relates to our eternal destinies, let us speak of whether the current scenario as it is constructed would be considered just. First, we are thrust into this world not of our own volition or choice, into a very limited lifespan. We are molded by people we did not choose, thus our worldview, spirituality included, from the very beginning is not necessarily our own. We grow up without the requisite knowledge of what awaits us in our eternal futures. Once we become aware of this scenario, if we ever do, we then have an inordinate number of choices, worldviews, and spiritual points of view to choose from, all the while knowing that we must choose the right one, or damnation could be our eternal fate. Once we mature enough to see reality, we are saddled with responsibilities, demands of our time, passions, desires, etc., so much so that we barely have time to truly consider the outcome of our life's choices. Thus, we ascribe to what sounds the best, maybe even what we just grew up with, and hope this is enough to allay the demanding God who awaits our souls. Now, to be given such a relatively short amount of time in comparison to the enormous weight of the decisions we are called to make, I don't feel that justice is served by this scenario. If God does indeed judge our eternal lives by this tiny blip of a physical existence, then I am not so certain he or she is who I would want to spend eternity with in the first place. So there you have it, a small snippet of my reasoning that the Christian God, as has been formulated over the 2,000 years of Christianity's existence, could not be as stringent, unyielding, and as vengeful as the Bible describes. I have changed my viewpoint 180 degrees about this subject, and now consider the God that I serve as nothing but loving, accepting, non-judging, and the embodiment of ultimate and completely selfless love. This change of view has completely and positively altered my view of life. I love my life and look forward to every opportunity to truly live it. Thank you so much for viewing today. I look forward to speaking more about topics such as this in the future. May the God of all abundance grant you everlasting peace, joy, and happiness. Till next time.